Hi.
Okay, ma'am. So is it clear, guys? Can you just tell us? Can
Yes, am
some?
I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just waiting for somebody to tell if we are clear.
Sure.
Okay, so we have Dr. Manjari with us, and for those of you who do not know who she is, and she has 8 years of experience, and she experience in child and adolescent psychiatry, owing to immense interest in child and psychiatry. She heads IMLA's Child Guidance Clinic. It's a chain of child and adolescent guidance clinic in Mumbai. She is very passionate about her role, not only in treating psychological illness, but also in promoting awareness. Madam has spoken at various prominent national and international seminars. Today she is here with us to discuss on how to deal with childhood trauma. Before that, there's another chief concern that I'd like you to talk about. So I had seen a talk of yours in which you had very beautifully mentioned about it. So it's a common misconception that's been prevalent amongst us. It's like I don't want to be pumped, full of drugs because of drugs that change my brain chemistry. And if I take an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety drug, it's because I have to rely on it for my entire life. So this is something that I've heard people tell me also. So can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. So good you brought up that question. And first of all, thank you for having me here on your page. I'm
Thank you
so
so
glad
much
that
for
youngsters like
joining us.
Yeah, I'm so glad that youngsters like you are giving importance. I mean, you all are all medical students, most of you all. So you all should understand psychiatry is a very important subject. And I hope many of you do get interested in psychiatry and take it up as a profession later on. And yes, as you rightly said, the need for mental awareness is very huge. And especially in today's times with all this pandemic, it's even more because we have seen a huge surge in psychological disorders over the last 2-3 months. So now, as you rightly said, like, the first time I tell anybody I'm a psychiatrist, it generally kind of raises eyebrows and brings a, weird kind of expression on most people. So people are not very comfortable saying that they are going, they are visiting a psychiatrist. Am I clear?
Yeah, it's breaking a little, but you can continue. I can hear you.
Hello?
Ma'am, I can hear your voice clearly,
Am I
but
clear?
the video is breaking.
Okay. There is some issue with my internet.
No problem, ma'am.
So anyway, so like I was, there are a lot of myths about psychiatry, and the first common myth is, of course, that if I'm going to a psychiatrist or if I'm seeking therapy, that means there is something wrong with me, or that psychiatrists always give medication. So psychiatrists, definitely we do use medication, but that's when it is needed. And of course, we have done a lot of study in pharmacology, but it's not true that every time you see a psychiatrist, you will be pumped with medication. Even if medication is given, sometimes it can be stopped within a short course. And of course, the effects, the benefit will be much more than the risk. But a lot of psychiatrists also do counseling, and therapy is an important process of our treatment. We don't just see the patient and pump them with medication. That's one biggest myth in people's minds.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for addressing this. So I think we'll just jump into this session. Okay, so ma'am, tell us what is child trauma, and can you explain the term adverse childhood experiences?
Yes. So when you think of childhood, what do you think? It's, childhood is supposed to be the best part of our life. So as the quote says, childhood is the best season of one's life, and family is something that we don't choose, but we are gifted with the family. And whenever we think of our families, we obviously think as very nurturing, warm relationships. We think of our comfort space within our family. That's the place where we are most comfortable. Unfortunately, not everybody has this comfort. Not everybody has a very happy and peaceful childhood, So there is what is called as adverse childhood experiences. So there are specific things that are included under adverse childhood experiences. They're basically, how did this term come? Except there was a study that was done many years ago, and they kind of listed out. So about 17,000, this study was done in the US, and about 17 to 18,000 people were interviewed, and then they were followed up later on in life. And they were kind of asked questions, and adverse childhood experiences generally includes, the following things. One is any kind of abuse. So there are 3 kinds of abuse. There is physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. So if you're abused either physically, emotionally by your partner or by anybody in the family, and sexual abuse, of course. That's the first 3. Then the next 2 are neglect. So when you talk about neglect, realize that abuse is either only physical, sexual, or emotional. Neglect is also a form of abuse. Neglect means you are not caring enough for the child. So that's emotional neglect. Physical neglect is when the child's physical needs are not met. So even physical neglect and emotional neglect are included under abuse, which most people, don't pay attention to. So those are the first 5, and the last 5 are circumstances within your family. So that includes anybody in the family having a severe psychiatric disorder, or anybody having attempted suicide, anybody into substance use disorder, anybody from the family
I'm
has
just going
been
to stop you for a
prison
minute.
before.
It's breaking. We'll just wait for the network to be fine. Yes, ma'am. Please continue. You're saying about anybody in the family?
Last I was talking about our family circumstances, in which you include anybody in your family, dealing with a severe psychiatric illness or suicidal, anybody who is addicted to alcohol or substance abuse, obviously more on the severe side, anybody in the family into jail before, basically prison, visited the prison before, or the child witnessing the mother being badly treated or abused at home. All these also come under adverse childhood experiences. So there is about a list of about 10 things. So the last 5 are what we call as the dysfunctional family. Adverse family functions, adverse things happening in the family. So these 10 together comprise of adverse childhood experiences. And the revelation of that study, the surprising part of the study, was about 40% of people in the study had reported that they had witnessed one or more of these adverse childhood experiences. And they were studied on the long term, like after many years when they were adults. Found that these children, when they grow up to become adults, they are more likely to suffer from things like emotional problems, physical problems, including cardiac disorders. That's where the role of inflammation comes in. Then they were also definitely prone to developing addictions, alcohol and substance. And of course, in childhood, they had learning difficulties, they had concentration difficulties, they had severe behavioral problems in their childhood. So it's an entire range, not only emotional, but also physical conditions that can develop later because you had one or more of adverse childhood experiences. And also, the number of adverse childhood experiences is important. So if you experience more than 4, which is most commonly one, you don't have a single one, you have more than one. So if you have more than 4 of these, you're more likely to suffer in the long term.
Okay, ma'am. So can you tell us, what are the common signs and symptoms that a child presents with, a child or an adult for that matter, if the person has gone through adverse childhood experiences?
Sorry?
I'm asking what signs and symptoms does one exhibit when a person has gone through experiences like this? How to identify people like that?
Yeah. So in childhood, like I'm a child psychiatrist more, we do see kids with behavioral problems. So there are some conditions we call as oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder, in which they don't just follow the rules of the society. They're extremely defiant. So that can be one sign. A lot of children later on in their adolescence have relationship issues. So they don't trust the other person. They get in and get out of relationships. That can be a sign of some trauma. Or having some kind of personality development issues, so a personality disorder in the adulthood, or having issues with attachment, basically. These are some of the signs that you may have experienced an adverse childhood experience early in life.
Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me about, let's say a child has a single parent. Let's say one parent has either left or has expired. So how depressing would it be for the child?
How? Sorry?
I'm asking if a child has only a single parent, and if the parent is not, since the parent themselves would have, trauma, how is this going to affect the child? How is it affecting the child?
So if there is a single, and you're asking if that parent has an issue?
Yes.
Hello?
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little better. I think even your end.
Oh, yeah, probably, ma'am.
Can you just...
Yes, I was saying, if there is a single parent and the parent is, they themselves have issues, so this affects the child very badly. What can be done for that?
Definitely.
What others can do for that?
Yeah, so, if that parent unfortunately has issues or has experienced an adverse childhood experience, a lot of time it interferes to the point that his or her parenting skills also get affected in the long run. So of course, but I'll tell you a little about how this adverse childhood experience affects the brain development first, for you to get an idea of what it does to the brain.
Your audio is clear, so you
Hello?
can continue talking even if the video pauses or if it loads.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was saying I'll tell you a little about how this affects the brain development. So if you see, the first 5 years of our life is when the maximum brain development is happening.
Yes.
That's when 90% of our adult development happens. And unfortunately, if there is an adverse during these first 5 years, it definitely affects the structural capacity of the brain to a very great level. So I'm sure you have studied anatomy, physiology, so that fight or flight response, certain parts of our brain, this fight or flight response has come because it is nature's way of preventing us from getting any kind of trauma. So like you're in a forest and you see a bear and you need to run away, your body goes into the fight or flight response. So that's the role of the amygdala, basically to control your prefrontal cortex and your but when repeated trauma happens, so when you have a father who's abusing or is coming home drunk every day, that's like the trauma is happening every single day. So when repeated trauma happens, your body goes into a state of hyper responsiveness. That means instead of being reactive only to threatening situations, your body is very reactive even for normal situations. So a simple touch of somebody might also be perceived by you as extremely dangerous. So body is always in this fight responses, and because of that your immunity, the way you see things also is changed. That's how the brain, that's why we say adverse childhood experiences does not only affect your body, it affects right up to your brain level. It affects your DNA, basically it affects the very structure of your brain if you have had more than 1 or 2 adverse childhood experiences in the past. So coming back to your question, what can you do? But with all this negativity and with me saying that your brain is affected, etc., the presence of one stable caregiver is something that can reverse a lot of things. So, you don't have that parent, but this child or if this adolescent has one healthy relationship where he sees comfort, where that person is, unconditionally loving him, that you have a friend who's going through something, there for her, listening to her, etc., that, take care of some of these things.
Okay. So you're saying that a stable relationship can actually reverse certain experiences that they've... Ma'am, is it audible now? Is it clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, fine. Okay, so moving on to the next question, like what activities or exercises would you suggest to a person who has been through stuff like this?
So basically there are 3-4 things that you can do.
Okay.
Like I said, some of these signs. One is of course physical exercise. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So one is physical exercise, and there is a lot of role of meditation in this. I explained the brain biology to you, and I told you that the amygdala is hyper reactive during these situations. The only way to calm down the amygdala is by meditation. So somebody who's gone through all this, if they maintain a healthy lifestyle by maintaining schedule, by doing meditation, by doing physical exercises, by cutting down exercise, a lot of these things can be taken care of.
I heard until physical exercises, ma'am. After that, I think the audio was stopped.
I think even... Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you now. You were talking about physical exercises. Ma'am, am I audible? I think there is a little connectivity issue. Just a minute, we'll just figure it out.
Just give me a minute. Also.
Yes, ma'am, no problem. Okay, so I'll just add ma'am in a minute. And if you guys have any questions to ask, please post it on the comments and also DM us for with suggestions. I'll just add ma'am in a minute. She'll be there. So, do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask ma'am? She'll be with us in a while. Very sorry guys for the interruption. Please ask questions if you have any. I'm seeing if ma'am has joined us yet. She's still coming. You can also tell us what other topics that you'd like to have a live on. You can always message us, and we can so that we can plan accordingly. Very sorry, I'm trying to find ma'am, but I don't think she's joined the session. So. Okay, so I'll just make a note of the questions that you guys are asking. Okay, I'm glad that you like this topic, and yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm trying to just read through the comments because we're waiting for ma'am to join, so I just don't want to bore you guys. So what do you all think, can be done for increasing mental health awareness? You can always pitch in. I'm so sorry, I'm trying to find ma'am. I don't think she's there. Thank you so much, guys, for being very patient and staying. So tell us, what other topics would you, really like to listen to? I'll ask that question when ma'am comes. Okay, I think ma'am has come from another thing. I'm adding ma'am. She'll be there in a while. And
hello.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi. Is this better?
I know. Yeah, that's better. I was searching for your account, but fine. Okay, ma'am, you were telling about the activities that someone can do if they have gone through experience like this. You were talking about physical exercises, and that's when the connection got.
Some things that can be done even to reverse or to take care of some of these symptoms. One is, of course, physical exercise. The other is the known role of meditation. So as I was explaining the brain structure and how it gets affected, I told you that the amygdala is overreactive in such situations. So in order to calm down the amygdala, that the only known thing is meditation. It helps to a great level to bring the hyper-responsive body to a normal state. So doing things like exercise, taking care of sleep, fit nutrition, and meditation are some of the things that we can do to reduce people. Of course, the other thing is therapy. Some simple things that we do in therapy, like writing down the emotions. So a lot of people block out all their kinds of adverse childhood experiences. So somewhere, they come into place where we try to block all these experiences, but they keep coming back later on in adult life. So, there are cases where they have experienced sexual abuse and the person doesn't recollect. Unfortunately, if this person hadn't spoken about it or not gone to therapy, gets married and or is in a relationship, it's very difficult at times to get close to somebody else, because that's when at that point these So at that point of time, talking or going to therapy, what we also encourage in therapy is writing down. Try and write down whatever you have experienced. Try and pen it down, because that's the way your body will learn to first accept it and deal with it. Because repression or putting it into your unconscious does that.
Okay, ma'am. So that was very informative. And actually, many people don't realize that they've been abused as a child. They only come to the realization after they've reached a certain age. So, how to help with that? When they realize that they've been abused, they get traumatized. And I don't think they immediately seek professional help. What can we do to help with that?
So if it is your friend and somebody doesn't want to seek help immediately, you can definitely encourage them to talk about it. So they will be shy or they don't want to express it because of various reasons. Sometimes guilt is extremely high in these people. So somewhere if there is sexual abuse in childhood, a lot of people feel guilty that they could have prevented it in some way from happening, or they should have done it and they should have done something when the abuse was happening. Now, of course, this is not possible. So encouraging somebody to express, encouraging somebody to talk about it will also help to a great extent. But of course, if that person is in a severe disorder because of that, like sometimes they go into suicide, they just don't accept it. At that point, of course, help is utmost important.
Okay. So again, there is another thing that is confused. Like, how is it different from PTSD? Like childhood trauma and PTSD, is it the same, or what is the difference?
So PTSD is basically one kind of adverse childhood experience. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. That means you have had an experience. It has to be a big enough shock, like rape is a trigger, or experiencing a near experience, like you had an accident where you almost came back from home. These kind of incidents, later on, you keep having flashbacks. So they have nightmares, flashbacks, and that is what we call as post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, in this treatment is speaking about it, letting it out at times. In these conditions, proper therapy and medication is also needed.
Okay, ma'am. So also, what can we do to protect children? Like any advices that we should give them, like let's say if there is a parent and just to avoid that the child doesn't go through these experiences, like maybe what should we teach them?
Yeah, so that is where the importance of life skills come in. Children as young as 3 or 4 need to understand what is good touch, bad touch. Luckily nowadays in schools, a lot of these things are being done, and you have kindergarten kids also who need to understand the basic difference between a good touch and a bad touch, and that's where all this education starts. And of course, no secret. Having that caring relationship with your child, the open relationship with your child, that if anything happens, your child will open up to you. So these are some of the things you can do for kids at a very young age.
Okay, ma'am. Also, there are a few questions that I'd like to ask about dysfunctional family. So, like you said, what about what characteristics are classify a family as a dysfunctional family?
So in dysfunctional family, you have things like where one parent has a substance use disorder, an addiction problem, where one partner is abusing the other partner, where there is physical violence, emotional abuse at home happening. These are some of the examples. Or over-controlling parents. So extremely demanding parents. This also can be a dysfunctional family. So we try to find out what is the kind of parenting at home. We try to understand what is the relationship between the parents, and then you understand if it's good, it can be called as a dysfunctional family. Of course, the child in that family can have a lot of complications. Not every child may suffer to the same level, because it also depends on coping mechanisms, the child's temperament. Children who have better coping mechanisms, who are more resilient, will also come out, but the twin or the sibling of that child may not be able to cope with such adversity.
Okay, ma'am. So since you said about over attention or little attention, so that brings me to my next question. Let's say there is a single child. So the parents either shower them with a lot of attention and they are being burdened, or is it at times they both might be working parents and very little attention is being given to them. So how does this affect the child's growth?
Again, what you asked is something that is very, very common in today's time. So most people, have single children. Not many go for more than one child, and also in most families, parents are working.
Yes.
Yes, so that is something that is extremely common in today's scenario. So the way to deal with it is, obviously, I keep saying it's not about the quantity of time that you spend with your child, but it's the quality of time. At the same time, make sure your child, is properly engaged, has friends, is, probably when you are away from home, sometimes the guilt rides into parents, and we call it weekend parenting. That means Monday to Friday, the parent doesn't have time with the child. So they try to make up by materialistic things, by gifting things, by them only on Saturday, Sunday. So the child learns to understand that love is only gifts, and that's what we call as materialistic parenting. So avoiding understanding that it's more about quality that you spend with them rather than the quantity.
Okay, ma'am. So also, what if a family has a lot of misunderstanding? Let's say the parents are going through divorce. How can they help the child?
Again, this is something that is also very commonly seen. I see a lot of kids in my clinic where the parents are undergoing divorce. But as I keep telling parents, a bad marriage or a bad relationship between parents is worse for the child than having separated parents. So many times we tend to, just stay together, and that this kind of abuse keeps happening every day in front of the child. But there can be parents are divorced when they are staying separately, but it's a very amicable relationship, and that effect will be much lesser on the child. It's also on how the divorce happened, how the co-parenting happens, whether both the parents are still there for the child. In the end, the child will feel secure knowing that my parents live separately, but they both are there for me when I need them. That's the message you give your kids. But staying together and still having the abuse happening every day or the neglect happening every day will definitely have more adverse consequences on it.
Okay, and thank you so much for all this. And I'm just looking if I have any other questions that I have to ask you guys. I'll maybe answer the questions that the guys have been putting. Yes, ma'am. So there is a question that says most of us will become parents in this decade. Right now, we face a number of interpersonal problems. How can we prep ourselves to become good parents and help kids form a healthy generation?
Of course, now awareness is more, so you know what is a healthy childhood, what your child really needs. So keeping that in mind, understanding what can lead to sometimes a psychiatric illness, how can you prevent it, improving your parenting skills, working on that relationship. Now there are
Hello, ma'am. I'm sorry, my connection is bad too.
Yes,
can you? Yeah.
It's not
Please continue. Yeah, mine is very bad actually. So yes, ma'am. Please continue.
So awareness or reading up, preparing to become better parents is something that can be done. And of course, you can seek professional help even for these reasons now. As I said that the role of psychiatrist is not only, treating mental illnesses, but also promoting mental wellness. And parenting is one of the most important things. So doing things like this will definitely help you to become a better parent. And of course, acknowledging that you yourself may be suffering from a psychological illness. So of course, people with anxiety, with depression, if you take care of your own mental and physical health, of course, you will be better parents tomorrow.
Okay, ma'am. So we have another question that says how to deal when you're stuck in such a family. I guess the question is like, how do you deal with it
about
now? Yes.
So, there's not much you can do. Like I said in the beginning, you don't choose your family. Of course, you can't even get out if you're still a minor or, you're part of the family. You can't get out. But of course, you can seek a stable relationship in, say, a good friend or a teacher or a colleague, or, you can speak to a therapist about it. And taking care of some, like we discussed, the role of exercise, the role of nutrition, the role of meditation. So doing whatever it takes to maintain your mental sanity and to have your me time is important. There are some other people that you can look up to for support.
Okay, ma'am. So we have another question that says how to deal with panic attacks when you live in such a family.
Yes, so panic attacks again is one symptom of, not necessarily of adverse childhood experience. Panic attacks is a type of anxiety disorder. It happens out of the blue when you have like a few moments where you feel you're going to die. It's almost like a heart attack. Extreme anxiety for some time without sometimes any So we do diagnose it, and if necessary, we do use medication for this condition because it can be very alarming. Also, somebody with a panic attack is always worried that they'll have another panic attack. So, like I said, their body is in this hyper-responsiveness state. So, doing therapy, going to a mental health professional, at the same time doing whatever you can for your mental wellness is something you can do if you have panic attack.
Okay, ma'am. So we have another question that says how to react or make ourselves calm in those adverse effects. I mean, how to control our anger emotions during that particular adverse effect.
First of all, accepting and acknowledging that you're not okay is most important. Accepting that there are some things that you cannot control. You may be able to control yourself, but how your family is reacting, how the other members are in your family are or around you are, is something you cannot control. And doing whatever you can to feel a little better for your mental health, wellness, paying attention to the things that you like, finding that kind of passion or purpose in life, having an outlet. No, I'm not talking about substances, but having a positive outlet for dealing with your emotions. Speaking to a friend. If you don't want to speak to somebody, journal it. Writing down your thoughts helps to a very great extent. So even writing down a daily diary of what happened will, help you with some of the symptoms.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. That was very useful. Anything else that you would like to emphasize, ma'am? I'm just waiting for other questions to come up.
Yeah,
Guys, please send questions.
Experiences is something that we, to some level, of course, now we can prevent because we know what good touch, bad touch is. We know the types of adverse one can experience. We know about it, so we can prevent it to a certain level. But if you have these conditions in your childhood, you had them. There's not much you can do now. It does affect the brain to a great level. But having a stable relationship, even one positive caregiver, is of importance at that time. So speaking about it, doing these things that we mentioned will help you to overcome some of the bad effects it has already done on your body.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'm just seeing if any more questions have come. Guys, if you have any more questions, please put them, or else we'll wrap up the session.
Also in therapy, we do what is called as trauma-focused CBT. So it's called trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, where we encourage the person to share whatever they have been through, write it down if needed, express it through words or express it through art, etc. And that's what we call as trauma-focused CBT. Also, we do parent-child interactive therapy. So if something had happened, but the parent wants to, change, so we do this parent-child interactive therapy, where we do what is called as parent-child bonding in these sessions, and that also helps to improve the relationship.
Okay, ma'am. There's one more question. I think we'll take this. How to deal with trauma of attempted suicide by one of the parent in childhood?
Yes, so that is exactly one of the things I mentioned initially about the 5 adverse.
Yes.
A family member having a severe psychiatric illness or attempted or committed suicide. That is definitely an adverse childhood experience. And if it is an attempted suicide, I hope the person has taken or is taking treatment for it. At the same time, knowing this has happened definitely can leave a big scar on the child. So accepting it, taking that to therapy at a very young age is also sometimes useful, because the child will find an outlet for all his worries, all his anxieties that he has. Also, psychiatric illnesses to a great extent are genetic. That's the reason, sometimes depression runs in families, and that's why you pay attention. Suicide is also something that is genetic. It runs. You have somebody who's attempted suicide in the family. We do watch very closely for the family members if they are having signs of suicide.
Okay, ma'am. So I guess it was very informative. I thoroughly enjoyed this session. So thank you so much for joining us, ma'am, and thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And I'm very sorry about the connection, and it was very informative. Sorry, ma'am, it's again breaking.
I can't see you still. I can only hear your voice.
Yes, ma'am, I am aware. My screen is frozen. So anyways, thank you so much, ma'am. It was very nice talking to you. It was a lovely session. Have a nice day, ma'am.
And I'm glad that you all are taking this thing of spreading mental health awareness.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.